Hey guys, so I'm finally getting around to making my Easter cards. I know I'm definitely late, but better late than never, right? And for my first card, I'm using a stamp set that's a little out of my comfort zone actually, called Indescribable Gift from Stampin' Up. And I'm actually going to end up using all of the stamps in this stamp set. So to get started, I have a piece of crumb cake cardstock that I've cut down to 4¼ by 5½. It's just a card front, not a whole card. And I'm going to use my Stamp-A-Majig to create my own pattern paper using the stamp from the stamp set that says Refresh, Renew, and Rejoice. And it's going to be tone on tone. So I'm going to go down just the left-hand side of the card using crumb cake ink with that stamp over and over again. Next, I'm going to work on the front portion of the card, and I'm using the big floral image from the stamp set to create my focal piece, or my biggest part of my card. And I'm stamping it down in Versamark ink on some watercolor paper. And I found when you stamp on watercolor paper, you kind of have to let the ink transfer in order to get a good impression. And I'm going to take some embossing powder, and I believe this is brown sugar, baked brown sugar, from American Crafts, and heat set it on my card because I'm going to be doing some watercoloring with some new markers that I recently got. I've picked out some colors from a watercolor pen set, and I'll link it down below because I don't even know how to say it. But I started off coloring the image, and my water brush wasn't sealed all the way, it wasn't closed all the way, and it just exploded all over the project. So I was ready to just abandon it, but I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with it. So I just smeared out that brown color so it looked like kind of a wash in the background, and I just kept coloring the little image in using the markers. And something I learned on this particular project was that these markers work better when the background is wet, because the portions of the card where I had already wet the background from where the brush exploded, the colors blended a lot easier than where it was dry on the right hand side. So I'll definitely keep that in mind for my next watercolor project that I use these markers on. I set the panel aside for a while so that that watercoloring could dry, and now that it is dry, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. So I've stamped it in Versamark ink again, and I'm going to emboss it using the same embossing powder that I used for the floral branch down at the bottom. I'm finally ready to start assembling the card. So I'm attaching the colored piece down to the panel that I stamped earlier to the right hand side, and I'm using some scraps of ribbon, and I've showed this in a different video as well, to tie a bow on the front. So I've taped that ribbon down to the front panel, and then I'm going to tie just a simple bow on the front. To adhere this front panel down to the card, I used a ton of adhesive because I knew that the card was going to be a little bit front heavy because of the different layers going on. And I thought I was ready to call this card done. So I took out my scissors and I trimmed the ribbon tails down to length, but then I decided that I wanted the card to have a little bit more. So I used a little bit of ecru embroidery floss to tie another bow on the top, and I just looped it through the front of the ribbon, just threaded it through and trimmed the tails. I think I missed stamping the sentiment on the inside on camera, but on the inside it does say Happy Easter. And here's a look at the final product. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.